Chapter 392, Triumph 6. What more could Eugene gain by asking for it in this assembly? Money. He already had more than enough. Often the most precious and necessary things couldn't be bought, no matter how much gold one possessed. Hence the thought of needing more wealth didn't even cross his mind. The same went for treasures. With no more dragon hearts available in the market, the Exids, the national treasures of Shimuan, were unattainable. Even so, he had not borrowed them for personal use. He found Rhaimyra's support more beneficial. Someone will find a use for them if we get them, Eugene thought. He could think of several people in the Lionheart clan who could make better use of the Exids. Thanks to the Exid Ordis lent them, Carmen had been powerful enough to stand head-to-head against the Demon King of Fury. Gilead and Guion would also benefit from them, or perhaps Cyan and Seal, whose mana hadn't yet reached its zenith, unlike the older generation. Materially, Eugene lacked nothing. He already owned an arsenal of weapons and received ample support in mana. He already drew on 3 types of aid for mana: amplification from Akasha, computational acceleration from Mare, and support in the form of Dragon Hearts and Draconic from Rhaimyra. With the added capability of prominence, he could fight with full power for days on end as long as his mind held. Thus, he sought something beyond material possessions. Emperor Strahd II grunted, unable to find words to speak. A request from the hero, to hold his request above royal decrees, was akin to asking for ultra-legal authority. It's excessive, the emperor couldn't help but think. Even the emperor of an empire wasn't above its laws unless, of course, they were a despot. Unless one was a tyrant, they still needed to uphold and follow the laws of their nation. However, if required, he could bypass legal and procedural barriers by invoking his imperial decree. Even if he is the hero, to grant such privileges to an individual would be. Of course, it was an understatement to label Eugene Lionheart as a simple individual. But even so, granting such a privilege was simply too much, wasn't it? Eugene, suppose you ask for support when preparing to face a demon king or an enemy of a similar caliber. In that case, I will prioritize your request above all else, Emperor Strahd II declared. Eugene wouldn't smack or slap him in front of everyone here, right? The emperor continued as he watched Eugene's expression crumple in real time. Of course. Even if it might not relate to mobilizing our forces, if your request is reasonable and necessary, I am open to granting it. But to skip over directly to having to request. Eurus has no objections, Pope Aurius interrupted before the emperor could finish. O hero of light! You are the embodiment of the divine light upon this earth, a representative of the light. If you give the command, this humble servant shall gladly obey without any objections, he declared solemnly. Had the old man completely lost his senses? Was he truly making such a proclamation not privately but in a gathering filled with so many people? Emperor Strahd II gaped at the Pope in sheer disbelief. This should put you in a bind, young brat, the Pope thought while casting a benevolent smile upon the emperor. His faith in the light and the hero was genuine. If Eugene had wished for it, the Pope would have sincerely offered up all of Eurus. However, rather than implicating only Eurus, it would be even better if the Kiel Empire and other nations of similar strength were made to dance to Eugene's tune as well. If need be, Ruhr will also pledge its support, Amon declared after a moment's contemplation. There seemed to be no reason for him not to promise. Amon took Eugene's request with an almost casual grace. Though the authority Eugene sought was beyond that of a monarch, would he ever misuse it to clear his sins after committing crimes in Eurus? Would he raise an army for a rebellion? There's no reason not to grant a friend's request, Ivatar said with a chuckle. Watching the events unfold, Daendolf too gave a nod of agreement. Aroth will do the same. The visage of Emperor Strahd II contorted in evident displeasure. Eurus was an empire of crazies who held their faith above its law. Ruhr had proven the might of their founding brave king, and no matter how valorous Eugene might be, he wouldn't dare to challenge the brave Molan, would he? So then what about the two of you? The emperor thought. Frustration was evident in his eyes. Aroth was seriously audacious. Aroth was a symbolic monarchy where real governance lay with the parliament. So what semblance of royal decree could come from there, aside from choosing the flora of Abram's garden? And then there was that native from the Great Forest. What laws could even possibly exist in that backwater forest? Did the leader of a mere tribe presume himself to have the same authority as an emperor? Shimuan will commit as well, uttered Osiris, his once trembling demeanor now transformed. His following statement was delivered with a sneer similar to the one the Emperor had worn moments before. Why don't you simply comply as well? Emperor Strat II shot him a scathing look. Do you believe the hero Sir Eugene would misuse royal authority? Asked Osiris. Considering the situation, Osiris had the same train of thought as the Pope. Now that things had come this far, he wasn't willing to sink alone. While under normal circumstances he should be more concerned with the Emperor's reactions, in this setting, pledging cooperation with the hero was as good as forming an alliance between nations. If the request is reasonable, and doesn't defy morality, Emperor Strat II began, only to be swiftly interrupted by Eugene, much to the Emperor's dismay. I shall be the judge of that. Little brat, why are you acting so stiff when you're going to bend anyway? That's how you break, bastard. Eugene gave a mental smirk. He made a slight gesture toward his cloak, following which Mare and Rhaenyra stepped forth from its folds, each holding a box. The sight was almost surreal. Two maidens had suddenly emerged from a mere piece of clothing. While most recognized Mare for her resemblance to Sienna was uncanny, Rhaenyra drew bewildered stares, given the deer antlers crowning her head and a gem embedded in her forehead. Please open them, Eugene instructed. The boxes were placed before the monarchs. The Pope, being the first to open his, gasped in astonishment. What is this? Inside the box lay 3 banners, each adorned with the insignia of a black lion. Would it not be more convenient for both of us? Eugene began, his gaze settling on the assembled rulers. It would be a sin for me to constantly ask for favors, especially from those engrossed in their nation's affairs. Using these banners as the symbol of our promise would be more efficient. Indeed, he sought to bypass the very notion of requesting. The Emperor opened the box in front of him, still wearing a look of sheer disbelief. Inside lay 6 banners. It was truly an audacious demand to have these designated as imperial seals. Sighing deeply, the Emperor grasped one of the banners. Very well. Eugene felt a tinge of satisfaction. He had commissioned these banners to Gondor, predicting they might come in handy in a gathering with the rulers of the continent. He was glad he had prepared beforehand. Now things will be much easier wherever I venture, Eugene mused. Bender. With a mere flash of these banners he could erase any records of using the warp gates in Kiel. He could even employ the Empire's intelligence instead of the information guilds or call upon spies hidden in other nations if need be. There are limitations on obtaining information about Helmuth using only guilds, Eugene thought. Such guilds were driven by profit, and as such they prioritized the value of information over any kind of loyalty or ethos. As such, the information they traded was usually high quality, but the guilds were disinclined to obtain information at the cost of their lives. However, national intelligence agencies operated on loyalties, national pride and beliefs. The intelligence Eugene coveted would only be obtainable from spies who dared to face death itself. How about a tax reduction? Eugene ventured, picking up his share of banners and casting a sidelong glance at the Emperor. The Lionheart clan does pay a hefty amount in taxes after all. A grinding noise echoed from between the Emperor's clenched teeth. Gilead cleared his throat awkwardly. Paying taxes is a duty that every citizen of the Empire should naturally follow. Well, paying less would be better. Not paying at all would be best, said Eugene. Fair. The Emperor's patience waned and he almost snapped back. Would you ask for the throne next? But he swallowed down his exasperation and the urge for a sarcastic remark. He feared that his question would truly be enacted upon. I will have it discussed, Emperor Strat II said, trying his best to avoid giving a direct answer. Eugene did not press the matter. When the conference concluded, and they emerged into the palace gardens, Eugene found the expansive grounds had been beautifully transformed. A large, ornate fountain spewed water that was glimmering golden light. As he admired the fountain's shimmer, his gaze inadvertently landed on the Pope. It's not, the Pope stammered with a startle. In response, Eugene mumbled with his eyes fixed on the cascading waters, fount of light. The Pope decided to stay silent. Oh. What the hell? Eugene cursed. The backdrop to the beautiful fountain showcased the majestic platinum lion. Palace chefs bustled around, filling the tables with delicacies. With Melkitha's every step, the garden's grass and soil morphed into smooth marble. She'll return it to its original state afterward, Daendolf comforted Osiris, who was trembling. It wasn't just Melkith who had stepped in to remodel the garden. Lovelian and Herodis also tirelessly weaved their magic to aid in the transformation of the palace gardens. The garden's walls soared and formed a ceiling stretching to the heavens. Through the magic of the wizards, this ceiling transitioned into translucent glass, upon which they painted an array of colorful stars. Magical candles that changed colors gradually adorned the area, setting a serene ambience. The marble floor was then covered with plush carpets. As the garden metamorphosed into a ballroom, the key members of the expeditionary force changed into attire befitting a grand banquet. Eugene wasn't spared. He had initially resisted, claiming his current uniform was adequate, but both Christina and Anise wouldn't hear of it. "You always wear the same uniform. Such an occasion calls for something different," Sienna remarked. She had hoped that tonight might present an opportunity to deepen her relationship with Eugene. The dress she'd chosen was so enticing that it felt slightly too much, even by her standards. It caused her to pause. It revealed more than it concealed, and her back was essentially completely bare. Sienna had the urge to change her dress, but she stopped herself. The very idea of displaying such attire, especially the exposed back, was deeply embarrassing to the wise Sienna. Moreover, she wished to show such a dress only to Eugene and no other. Seal, on the other hand, didn't even get a chance to choose her own dress. Throughout the banquet preparations, her mother, Ancilla, was holding back tears while stroking the area around Seal's eyes. Though Seal tried to reassure her mother that all was well, she had to endure similar concerns from Gilead, Guion, and Cyan as they showed up. As the conversation of consolation neared its end, Cyan was cornered by Amon. "I should have brought Isla," Amon chided. "Aha. Yes. Haha." Cyan stuttered awkwardly. "Isla speaks of you often. You two correspond through letters?" asked Amon. "Yes. Indeed. Her Highness always wishes for a reply," said Cyan. "You needn't call her Her Highness every time. Call her comfortably." "How do you address her in your personal letters?" asked Amon. "What? I usually just call her Princess," responded Cyan. "There's no need for that. You know, she doesn't feel that title is anything special due to its frequent use. Let me tell you something special about her. Isla." Amon leaned in and whispered, "She absolutely adores being called Little Fawn." Silence ensued at this revelation. "She likes to be called Rabbit as well," Amon continued. Cyan swallowed hard. He had met Princess Isla of Roer previously. Indeed, with her large innocent eyes, the nicknames Little Fawn, or Rabbit, perfectly suited the adorable and beautiful Isla. It was hard to believe that this delicate girl was the offspring of the formidable Beast King. There was just one problem. He was big. At the tender age of 11, she had been big, unbefitting her age. Even back then, the height difference between her and Cyan had been minimal. From what Cyan recalled, the 11-year-old Isla was either comparable to or taller than the 17-year-old Seal. When she grows even taller. At this thought, Cyan wiped the cold sweat from his brow and stole a glance at his potential father-in-law. To Cyan, Amon looked as massive as a giant, and it was easy to imagine an equally towering Princess Isla gazing down at him from an immense height. "When would you prefer the wedding to be?" Amon suddenly asked. "I'm sorry, what?" asked Cyan, completely taken aback. "I told you. My daughter seems to have taken a strong liking to you. Do you not feel the same about Isla?" queried Amon. "Well, given the princess age," Cyan hastily responded. "Then what do you think about living together first and postponing the ceremony?" asked Amon. "What?" Cyan asked, shocked. Don't worry. I have no intention of asking you to move to Roer. It'd be absurd to bring you, the heir to the Lionheart family, to Roer as my son-in-law. How do you feel about me sending Isla to the Lionheart estate instead?" asked Amon. Cyan's face turned visibly pale. That's not for me to decide. We should respect Princess Isla's wishes," he responded, hastily thinking of excuses to reject the proposal. "Haha. My son-in-law, do you take me for a heartless father who'd ignore my cherished daughter's desires? I'm saying this because all I hear is Cyan this, Cyan that. She can't stop talking about you," Amon exclaimed loudly. "What on earth did Princess Isla see in me? Cyan wondered. He was genuinely unable to fathom the reason for this infatuation. Until the banquet preparations concluded, Cyan had to endure Amon's relentless bragging about Princess Isla. While Sienna had discreetly switched to a more refined dress, she felt a mix of regret and relief upon seeing Melkitha's deep-cut dress, revealing not just the back but also plunging down her chest. Seal wore a pristine white dress fitting her nickname, White Rose, while Eugene was coerced into a stifling tuxedo by the saints. Ironically, these very saints had not changed out of their priestess garments. "Why haven't you changed?" Eugene challenged. "Hamel, have you ever seen me wear anything other than this even 300 years back during a ball?" retorted Anise. Eugene couldn't break through the seemingly well-prepared excuse. The ballroom was ready, outfits had been changed, and the mood was lively. Yet the festivities couldn't begin just yet. Surprise! As if they had been waiting for the opportune moment, an uninvited guest burst onto the scene. Chapter 393, Triumph 7. The climate on Shimuan's many islands was warm throughout the year. The nation was renowned for its festivities, including the Colosseum and the street festivals. The emerald sea that surrounded it shimmered beautifully. No matter which coast one visited, sunbathers and tourists dotted the sands. While islands like Shetter and Larupa were bustling due to the sheer number of people, tranquil, picturesque islands could be found just a short boat ride away. These islands typically housed the mansions of the wealthy or were developed into luxurious resorts frequented by honeymooners. The outfit of Noir Giabella, the queen of the night demons, seemed to align with such islands. A crowded beach scene was her backdrop. Though everyone else wore swimsuits and was engrossed in beach activities, all eyes would still be on this breathtaking woman. She might be a bride who rigorously prepared herself for her groom or a superstar strolling on a quiet private beach. Either way, it meant that she donned a swimsuit. Her pale skin contrasted with the black bikini she wore. The slightly loose straps of her bikini swayed like Noir's tail. Every step she took felt like a runway crafted just for her. Noir confidently strode into the venue with a perfect model walk. "Surprise!" she said, beaming and confidently presenting herself. Thousands of gazes turned towards her. It took varying lengths of time for those present to realize the current situation. The castle doors had randomly opened, and a woman in a bikini had just boldly entered. It wasn't something to be easily brushed off. The woman was none other than Noir Giabella, the queen of the night demons, and she was present in her true form. Moreover, unlike when Eugene had encountered her at the Dragon Demon Castle, Noir now exuded an aura characteristic of a night demon. A night demon, also known as a succubus, had the innate ability to bewitch humans. Even a lower-tier night demon could effortlessly captivate a human. As such, the presence of the queen, the pinnacle of their species, resulted in a quick domination of the hall. However, many of those present in the hall were far from ordinary. While the servers were stopped in their tracks, blushing and gasping for breaths, the elite guests quickly regained their composure after a few hurried breaths. After all, they were all representatives of their respective nations. However, their quick recovery was a testament to Noir's mercy. Even without officially taking on the title of a demon king, her aura surpassed that of a succubus. She had more than enough power to rival a demon king. If Noir chose to unleash her full aura, even the most elite knights would have found it impossible to maintain their calm. She could have easily incapacitated half the attendees just by her mere presence. And if she had used the demon eye of fantasy, she would have caused effortless annihilation as if she were stomping on ants. Yet she wasn't here for a massacre nor to enthrall everyone. "Surprised everyone?" she asked with a teasing grin. A containment circle had formed around her even before she asked the question. The thousands in the hall had surrounded her. The knights had their weapons drawn. Of particular note were the holy knights, who were already pointing their weapons directly at her from the front. "Girls usually don't like men who are too fast," commented Noir. She tilted her head upwards and raised her gaze to see Crusader Raphael. The zealous paladin was in the air with his great sword drawn, which he had done upon spotting Noir before charging at her. Raphael's hopes to cleave Noir in two didn't come to fruition. His devoutly acquired divine power and the resilience packed in his youthful frame were rendered meaningless before Noir's magical bindings. "Next time, approach a lady slowly, patiently, and, when you climb her, be more gentle," Noir quipped, her eyes dancing with mischief. Though given your stature, you might struggle to climb aboard. Raphael's body moved in tandem with her gaze. However, he wasn't thrown about or slammed into a distant wall. Instead, Noor gently set him down on the ground. Damn whore. Raphael spat through his gritted teeth. This treatment, coupled with her prior remarks, was enough to make Raphael's blood boil. As he readied to charge at Noor once again, a hand grabbed his shoulder from behind. You're still so impulsive, grumbled Eugene, pulling Raphael back. Had the one restraining him been a pontiff, Raphael might have disregarded the intervention. But realizing it was Eugene, he immediately restrained his fury. To Raphael, a devout crusader of Euras, every word and intent of Eugene, the hero, was as if spoken by the divine light itself. Fucking whore, Eugene thought with a frown as he glared at Noir. He had last encountered her in the Salgalta Sea region just a few weeks prior. He hadn't expected her to show her face here, let alone in her true form. Is she that confident? Eugene wondered. If he used all the resources available here, could he kill Noir? Taking her down outside her realm might be easier than killing her after breaching her domain. Yet confronting Noir here would be far from easy. Even if they attacked her right now, there might be less than 10 survivors even if they won. Tisk. Eugene clicked his tongue as he glared at the demon standing behind Noir. 10 survivors? No, all of them would be annihilated if they attacked right now. If Noir had used a warp gate, there would have been advance notice of their arrival. And here I was wondering if she had flown all the way here from Helmuth, Eugene thought in irritation. It had been the same during the night march. The black mist had appeared in Lahanjar without using a warp gate. It was all thanks to the Blade of Incarceration, Gavid Lindman. His demon eye of eternal glory granted him the authority to wield the powers of the Demon King of Incarceration. As such, it allowed him to teleport just like the Demon King of Incarceration could. Duke Giabella, Gavid began, lips curling, did I not warn you? I told you that breaking in uninvited would earn you hostilities. That is why I said we should enter properly with respect. Though he was admonishing Noir, his gaze was fixed on Eugene. Those ink-splotched eyes stared intently at him. Perhaps you don't really understand, Duke Lindman. Showing such a playful, folksy appearance is better to put everyone at ease, Noir said with a giggle while flipping her hair back. She exaggeratedly swayed her body, drawing attention to her ample bosom. She continued, everyone can clearly see that unlike you with your grim expression, I appear as someone here to enjoy the beautiful sea, the grand festivities and sweet encounters. Isn't that right? Gavid did not deign to respond to her nonsense. His shadowed eyes remained fixed on Eugene, who countered the intense gaze without flinching. What are you staring at? Moreover, Eugene didn't stop at just staring. He snapped, his voice dripping with disdain. Gavid didn't respond but restrained his simmering anger. Just as Noir hadn't come for bloodshed, neither had Gavid. He took a step back while containing his fury, although his frustration was evident. Firstly, I apologize, he began, his words directed not at Eugene but at the humans still holding their formation. Their tension was palpable, as if they stood on the brink of an explosive conflict. For arriving unannounced, for opening the castle gates without permission, for disrupting the festival. But Gavid couldn't finish his sentence because of a rude interruption. At least you know it, Eugene interjected. Gavid's eyes narrowed before saying, I understand your concerns. I also know that you all are not here merely for celebrations. If you understand, then say it, Eugene said bluntly. Gavid took a deep breath as he clenched his fists while glaring at Eugene. Part of him wished to smash the insolent human's face into the ground, but he couldn't. Doing so would go against the wishes of the Demon King of Incarceration. And thus, Gavid was forbidden to touch that human. Unfortunately for Gavid, Eugene was well aware of this fact as well. Just a few weeks prior, he had met with the Demon King of Incarceration deep in the ocean's abyss. Their exchange provided Eugene with clear answers. As long as Eugene didn't turn towards Babel, there would be no war between them. Of all demons, it's you. Bastard, you'll never go against the Demon King's wishes and harm me, Eugene thought with a mental smirk. And so, Eugene could continue to irritate Gavid with confidence. Are you not going to speak? Eugene taunted. What's giving you such confidence? Gavid seethed. I trust your Demon King, Eugene responded smugly. This jab broke Gavid's restraint, causing him to clench his teeth so hard they shattered. He trembled with rage while staring at Eugene, then turned away, not wanting to engage further. Running a hand over his regenerating jaw, Gavid finally spoke. "I have a message from the Demon King of Incarceration." Gavid directed his gaze at two other figures, the Emperor of Kiel and the Pope of Uraz, the two most influential humans on the continent, barring Helmuth. "His Majesty, the Demon King of Incarceration, wishes that you don't associate the antics of the Demon King of Fury with Helmuth," Gavid declared, causing a ripple of shock among the listeners. However, he ignored the murmurs as he continued. "However, he won't deny the connection between the Dark Elf Iris actions and her origins in Helmuth. Although she was defeated and banished during the Domain War, she is a demon and her roots in Helmuth are undeniable. Therefore, His Majesty, the Demon King of Incarceration, feels a measure of responsibility." Eugene frowned, trying to decipher Gavid's game. What was the intention behind these words? What was he trying? As such, "Helmuth will take responsibility and provide ethical compensation," continued Gavid. "Compensation, you say? Are you perhaps talking about monetary reparation?" asked the Emperor after clearing his throat. Gavid chuckled softly before responding, "Monetary reparations? Not that. Then what exactly?" Emperor Strahd II asked. "As I said," Gavid's voice took on an edge, "an ethical compensation. To speak honestly, I don't find this entirely justified. Iris was banished from Helmuth before becoming the Demon King. Was it not this kingdom that neglected her rise to power?" He shot a disdainful look at King Osiris, his eyes gleaming with mockery. "But," Gavid continued with a smirk, "unlike me, His Majesty, the Demon King of Incarceration, is truly merciful. Listen closely, King Osiris." Osiris visibly shrank under Gavid's gaze, his body shaking slightly. Enjoying the king's discomfort, Gavid went on. "His Majesty, the Demon King of Incarceration, decreed that any human who was harmed directly or indirectly by Iris and her pirates can migrate to Helmuth without any formalities. They can become residents without paying a single coin." Osiris became wide-eyed at Gavid's words. Gavid continued, "Of course, just because they did not pay the immigration fee doesn't mean they will be discriminated against. Helmuth will never discriminate against or prosecute the immigrants." "What are you possibly talking about?" stammered King Osiris. King Osiris, what am I talking about? Are you really asking me because you don't know? You turned a blind eye to Iris and the pirates, and as a result a lot of people were harmed and suffered. His Majesty is willing to embrace all those who suffered in place of the useless royal family and this nation." Osiris' face turned red with embarrassment, and the monarchs around him also took on stiff expressions. Helmuth's immigration welfare system was renowned throughout the continent. Numerous individuals eagerly awaited their turn to migrate. And now, even if only for the victims, the offer to relocate without any procedure was astounding. "This," Gavid paused, emphasizing each word, "is the compensation promised by His Majesty, the Demon King of Incarceration." From Gavid's side, Nor stepped forward while swaying her tail seductively. "I too have thought of a recompense. After all, if you think about it, the events transpired because I defeated Iris in the territorial war. Had I slain her instead of banishing her, she wouldn't have become a pirate or a demon king." Eugene didn't care for whatever crap she was spouting. Yet he refrained from interrupting. Instead, he waited for Noir's next choice of bullshit. "My compensation," Noir chirped brightly, "is a free pass to Giabella Park. And special coins." With a flourish, she raised her arms, and with a dramatic ta-da sound, red coins rained down from the space above her head. With these special coins, most facilities in Giabella Park can be accessed for free, without any waiting in line. "There are many other special privileges as well," she exclaimed, her eyes gleaming with mischief. As the coin rain ceased, with a flick of her fingers, the scattered coins on the ground assembled into a neat tower. "Any tourist hailing from Shimuan can get these special coins at Giabella Park. Now then, you must be wondering what these coins here are for." With a playful wink directed at the stupefied knights, she added, "These tokens are for you noble souls who ventured across the seas, to honor and guard our hero Eugene Lionheart. Now, don't be shy. Do take them. With but a single coin, a lifetime of unparalleled experiences awaits at Giabella Park, where every longing of yours can be realized." You came all this way for this nonsense? Eugene snapped, cutting her off and leveling a fierce glare at Noir. Every hair on her stood on end as she felt a chilling shiver pierce her. Those eyes. Ah, those piercing eyes, she thought. Their intensity was felt much better in person. Undeterred, she met his gaze with a bright smile. While Gavid and I are indeed here to provide compensation, we do have a more pressing matter at hand. Bender. What matter? Eugene inquired, keeping his gaze fixed on Noir and Gavid. He kept his senses alert to the movements around him. Moreover, Sienna and Christina were preparing for any potential conflict, ensuring they were ready to respond at a moment's notice. He didn't bring any backup this time, Sienna stated after observing beyond the castle gates. Unlike the night march, Gavid hadn't summoned the black mist. Yet he was capable of calling them forth anytime with the power of his demon eye. Christina and Anise were aware of this and readied a divine barrier. Still, they also knew its limitations. No matter how potent the divine barrier, it wouldn't stop Gavid if he decided to use the power of his demon eye. The might of the Demon King could nullify even the divine powers of the saint. But if Gavid were to summon the black mist, they'd retaliate immediately using the barrier. Our true reason for coming here. Noir trailed off, pausing before she began to sing in a melodic tone. Congratulations, congratulations. Her voice echoed through the silent hall, singing praises of Eugene's victory over the Demon King. Congratulations on your triumph over the Demon King, dear Eugene Lionheart. Gavid remained completely still throughout her performance. His gaze was fixated on Noir with an unblinking stare. At that moment, Eugene felt a rare bond with Gavid, for he too was gazing at Noir, equally nonplussed. Applause. Oblivious to their shared disbelief, Noir clapped with bright enthusiasm. Make a wish now. She presented a giant cake to Eugene. It had appeared in her hands before anyone noticed, and a thick candle was burning at its center. Think of your heart's desire and blow out the flame, Eugene. But know that you have to do it in one breath or else. Eugene's patience had worn thin. He wasn't about to let her continue. Bam! With a swift kick, he sent the cake flying right into Noir's face. Chapter 394, Triumph, 8. Such a direct hit with a cake could have only been staged in a rehearsed comedy, yet even then, it wouldn't have landed as perfectly as this did. But if it were a comedy, one might have expected the ambience to be filled with laughter and applause. However, the room was now completely silent. It was difficult to even hear the cautious breaths of those anticipating Noir's retaliation. Yet they only thought so because they knew little of Noir. On the other hand, Eugene was begrudgingly familiar with Noir. He knew her nature and believed she wouldn't erupt in rage over such a slight. This very thought irked him even more. Noir Giabella, the damned night demon, had always been this way. Since 300 years ago, she had invaded his dreams and caused endless torment. No matter how much Hamel cursed or threatened her, she had only ever responded with a carefree laugh. Throughout all their interactions, Eugene had never witnessed genuine anger from Noir Giabella. Ehem, Noir cleared her throat. As the cake she had prepared slid off her face, she gracefully caught the fallen remnants with her hands. Her face was a mess. It was utterly smothered with cream, and her hair was clinging together due to the frosting. Deftly, her lips parted and her tongue emerged. Then she licked the cream off her lips with her pink tongue. But she didn't stop there. She stretched out her long finger and slowly wiped off the cream smeared on her cheek before savoring it as if it were the finest candy. Eugene's face twisted at her audacious display of sex appeal. However, she spoke before he could interject. You know, there's a variety of cakes out there. He merely glared at her in response, waiting for her to continue. She giggled. It might surprise you, but I'm not too fond of overly sweet desserts. However, if I were to pick a favorite cake, it would be this one. A classic strawberry shortcake. Layers of soft cake interspersed with strawberries and cream, and a fluffy layer of cream on top. What was her point? Eugene continued to glare at her without verbalizing his thoughts. Noir continued to giggle. Carrying on with her display, Noir gleefully picked a bright red strawberry from the cake and bit into it. Her eyes twinkled mischievously as she slowly savored the fruit. Eugene, had I known your cake preference, I would have tailored it to your taste. Maybe it's still not too late. Eugene, tell me, which cake do you favor? She asked. Shut up, Eugene retorted. Do you not like any? Noir teased, then continued, "Hi goodness. We're so alike. Like you, I'm not a fan of cakes either." Her laughter rang out as she flippantly tossed the cake behind her. The cake magically disappeared mid-air, ensuring no unfortunate soul would be caught in its messy trajectory. Likewise, every trace of cream vanished from her face, leaving it pristine once again. "As I thought, we do seem to pair well, don't we? What do you think?" Noir's voice oozed mischief. Eugene stayed silent, his patience wearing thin. Noir continued, her eyes dancing with amusement. "Well, with the kind of relationship we share, there's no need for many words. We can discern each other's thoughts with only a single glance. To prove it, I know what you are thinking right now, Eugene. Do you want me to guess?" "No, don't," he responded tersely. "You don't want me to? Do you wish to keep our shared secrets between us?" Noir cooed. A surge of fury rose within Eugene and his shoulders trembled. He wanted to kill her. He wanted nothing more than to silence her permanently. Yet the knowledge that acting upon such desires was impossible only fueled his anger further. The ever-observant Noir saw his frustration and laughed heartily after placing her hands on her waist. "I'm disappointed that I couldn't give you that cake or have you blow out the candle. So it doesn't really matter. After all, I got to enjoy the cream meant for you," said Noir. "Why do you always talk like that?" Eugene gritted out. "Well, what do you mean why? It's fun, especially when you react to every single thing I say," Noir replied, her tail swishing playfully behind her. Gavid watched their interaction not far from her. The emotions surging through him weren't very different from Eugene's. "Duke Giabella," he began with a measured tone, "we're here as emissaries of Helmuth. Please, do not tarnish the name of Helmuth with these trivial and unbecoming conversations." "What does it matter?" Noir retorted. "There's no need for such stiff formality now." She leaned towards Eugene and whispered with a smirk, "Truly, Eugene, this isn't mere jest. We're here not just to compensate for the foolery of Iris, of the Demon King of Fury, but also to congratulate you." What was she on about? Eugene shifted his gaze between Noir and Gavid with a crumpled expression. If this was some sort of jest, Gavid would have stepped forward to deny it. Yet Gavid remained silent, only grinding his teeth in frustration. "I'm really telling the truth," Noir continued, her tone more solemn. "The Demon King of Incarceration wishes to convey his congratulations to you, Eugene Lionheart, for your heroic feat of vanquishing the newly risen Demon King." A murmur spread among the gathered guests at her words. All had come prepared for a potential showdown between the representatives of Helmuth and Incarceration. Instead, they were met with words of praise and honor. "What's the game here, you bastard?" Eugene cursed the Demon King of Incarceration internally. There was no reason for the Demon King of Incarceration to send emissaries to congratulate him like this. But Eugene's train of thought changed gears. "No, does that mean that there's something for him to gain by congratulating me like this?" Like their encounter in front of Agarotha's statue, Eugene could not fathom the Demon King of Incarceration's intentions. He remained silent while contemplating, and Noir scanned the lavishly decorated hall. She spoke, her voice dripping with delight. "Such a grandly adorned feast hall. We did come from a distant place. It should be fine for us to also indulge ourselves a bit, right?" "Duke Giabella," Gavid interrupted her in a stern voice. He did not agree with Noir's words. "Bender. Our duties as envoys are complete. Lingering here would only breed discomfort among the guests. If I were to be a bit more extreme, I might even say that the feast isn't beginning because of our presence," he stated dully. Well," Noir mused, "maybe, Duke Gavid, it's because you're taking this all too seriously?" While locking eyes with him, she said, "I did mention before that one should dress according to the occasion." A rush of thoughts flooded Gavid's mind, and at least a dozen retorts to her nonsense emerged one after another. It was evident to everyone in the hall that almost all the men wore attire similar to Gavid's formal wear. Only Noir Giabella dared to attend in swimwear. Melkith was wearing a revealing dress, but it did not even come close to the audacity of Noir's revealing bikini. So what was she saying? Appropriate attire? Gavid wished to retaliate against such nonsense immediately, but knowing that logical discourse would have no effect on this audacious woman, he held his tongue. In the first place, debate with such a thoughtless woman was meaningless. No matter what he replied with, he would end up ensnared in her web of twisted logic. And he was loath to reveal such vulnerability in front of the lowly humans. If you wish to indulge, do so at your leisure, Gavid said curtly while turning away from her. There was no hesitation in his actions. Will you leave me here alone? Noir's voice held a note of mischief. He responded, I'm still contemplating if I can. If you want to do so, then it's fine with me. After all, I can find my way back on my own. Well, no, why don't I linger and travel a bit more before returning? It has been quite some time since I've been so far from home. Gavid gave a long sigh in response. While it seemed unlikely that Noir, a workaholic, would leave Giabella City to gallivant on a whim, one couldn't overlook the potential. He couldn't simply abandon her, given how unpredictable she was. Who knew what she would get up to? After a pause, Gavid said, We'll return together. However, I have no desire to revel in the feast here. Very well. You can wait for me outside. I'll come find you after, responded Noir. Noir didn't protest his unwillingness to stay. In her eyes, it was far more convenient without Gavid's presence. Before departing, Gavid's eyes found Eugene. He thought for a fleeting moment, such arrogance. But he pushed that thought away. Regardless of his temperament, Eugene Lionheart had earned his stripes. He was a human strong enough to be arrogant. Even though it had been with external aid, he had defeated a demon king. It wouldn't be inappropriate to call him the strongest in the continent, Gavid observed. Many of the renowned knights attending the feast were reputed figures in their own right. Carmen Lionheart, Alchester Dragonic, Raphael Martinez. Not to mention the Beast King of Roar Kingdom and the head of the Lionheart family. These figures were always mentioned when discussing the strongest warriors of the continent. Yet to Gavid, Eugene's aura dwarfed them all. He felt Eugene was even more formidable than Vermouth, who had attempted to challenge the Demon Kings 300 years ago. He's stronger than Vermouth during his prime at Babel's Ascent, Gavid concluded. The thought made Gavid chuckle silently. Stronger than Vermouth? That wasn't very threatening. After all, even Vermouth had failed to conquer Babel 3 centuries ago. Gavid felt his mood improving as he raised his head. It's been a while, Sienna Meridian, Gavid said. He found himself face to face with Sienna. Their eyes locked just before he passed through the castle gates. Sienna had been standing near the gates as if to guard them. She tilted her head slightly as her eyes filled with disdain. Don't exude such a menacing aura. I'm not here to pick a fight, said Gavid. Your words ring with arrogance as if you're something. Quite hilarious considering you fled by yourself, retorted Sienna. You say the exact same things as Moulin Roar, Gavid commented. Meaning even that fool could see how low you fell, Sienna retorted with a smirk as she stepped aside. Although she had granted him passage, Gavid stared at Sienna before continuing on his way. What are you staring at? Sienna's voice held a touch of irritation. 3 centuries have passed, yet your penchant for foul words remains. Shouldn't you mature after aging? Gavid shot. Why not save those words for that brazen whore over there? Sienna retorted while gesturing over to Noir with a scoff. Gavid found himself at a loss for a response. He stormed past her and exited through the castle gates while trying to keep himself composed and his anger contained. Boom. But even as the gates closed behind him, the feast did not resume. The aftermath of the sudden intrusion lingered, and Noir was still present in the hall. Shall we begin with resuming some music? A lively tune might set the mood, Noir suggested while holding 2 champagne glasses. Offering one to Eugene, she asked, Care for a drink? What are you playing at? Eugene rejected the glass with evident distaste. Noir simply shrugged while taking back the glass, a token of gratitude for this realm and a toast to your accomplishments. I never asked for any of this, but what can I do? You came of your own accord and gave these things to me, Eugene spat. That's why it's a surprise, Noir replied while taking a sip from her glass. Isn't your business here concluded? Surely you're not staying to genuinely enjoy the party? Eugene inquired. I've always craved to attend a party with you. I'm asking just in case, but would you grant me a dance? Asked Noir. Don't spout such nonsense, Eugene spat. I expected as much, said Noir as she brought the champagne to her lips once more. I wish to speak with you privately, she projected directly into Eugene's mind. I have a story that might intrigue you, she added. Her words caused a shift in Eugene's expression. He did not want to deal with Noir. But regardless of his distaste for her, he was curious about what she wanted to say. "I've no patience for roundabout conversations," Eugene declared. He had received assistance from Noir in the past. He had infiltrated the Dragon Demon Castle to find Rhaenyra, and Noir had taken care of everything after he caused the Dragon Demon Castle to crash into the ground. Naturally, Eugene bore no gratitude towards Noir, not even a tad. Regardless of why she had chosen to help him, he felt only one thing towards her: an intent to kill. He had no reason to feel gratitude just because she had helped him. It would have been different had she been human, but she was a demon. It might have been a different story if he were dealing with a demon he had absolutely no connection to, a demon who was born very recently. However, he could never make such an exception for Noir Giabella, no matter what. It was the same now. He didn't know exactly what her intriguing story would entail, yet he knew there would be no harm in listening to it. He realized that what she had in store for him might prove helpful to him in the future. In other words, Noir Giabella would be helping him. Even so, Eugene would kill Noir. Speaking here is hardly appropriate. Shall we find somewhere quiet? A bedroom, perhaps? Noir teased as she sensed the animosity rolling off Eugene. Eugene had no intention of following her to such intimate quarters. Without uttering a word, he pointed to a towering spire within the palace. Noir let out a gleeful squeal when she saw him point. A man and a woman climbing and sharing a private moment atop a tower? How romantic. Do we get to gaze at the stars together now? Noir teased, her voice dripping with insinuation. Eugene still found no merit in responding to her words. He merely shot her a glare before briefly looking around. He made note of the watchful eyes trained on them. Knowing that his family might be worried, Eugene gave a wave in their direction. "Sir Eugene," said Christina as she approached. Her face was a mask of concern. "It's fine," he assured her before leaping into the air from where he stood. Although the tower soared high, a single bound took him to the terrace. He looked down and watched as a bat-winged figure, Noir, gracefully ascended towards him. After landing softly on the balcony and taking a seat on the railing, she flashed him a cheeky grin. "Everyone seems concerned. Do they think I'll devour you here and now?" asked Noir. "Get to the point," said Eugene. "Well, we've ascended this high. Can't we indulge in a touch of romance?" "Look at this view, Hamel, isn't it magnificent?" queried Noir. Below them, the banquet hall shimmered brilliantly. The glass ceiling revealed a blanket of stars, and further away, beyond the castle walls, the city's lights twinkled beautifully. The sky was alive with fireworks, a testament to the ongoing festival. "I said get to the point," repeated Eugene. "It's difficult to explain in words," Noir crooned while crossing her legs seductively. "What about this? I won't explain it in words and show it to you instead. That should be better for you in any case." "You're going to show it to me?" questioned Eugene, his words laced with suspicion. "We'll dream it together," said Noir, her eyes sparkling with a mischievous light. Yet Eugene's eyes sank coldly. Noting his growing fury, Noir added with a playful tone, "You already despise me deeply, and while I revel in your disdain, I won't force you into anything you don't like, not now at least." Eugene remained silent with weary eyes. "I promise, Hamel. I'll share this dream with you, but I won't pry into your deepest secrets," assured Noir. That was the root of Eugene's, or Hamel's, enmity towards Noir. 3 centuries ago, Noir had peered into every facet of a man named Hamel Dynas. She had seen the memories of the past, fleeting or long-buried emotions, his animosity towards the demon race, complex feelings for allies, envy towards Vermouth, dread for the Demon King, and self-loathing. Noir had seen all, even feelings he hadn't acknowledged or known himself. She had dug through every trench and dived into every pore of his identity. Noir had seen everything. "What exactly do you wish to show me?" asked Eugene after a moment of silence. "Revesta," Noir replied, her eyes sparkling with mischief. She leaned closer to Eugene, her lips curling into a sly smile. "I visited the realm not so long ago. The territory where the Demon King of Destruction had secluded himself. I'll only tell you this much. The rest, you'll have to see in the dream," said Noir. "I doubt there's any need for me to see it," replied Eugene. "No." Noir firmly shook her head. "Trust me, Hamel." Her voice dropped to a whisper, imbued with a weighty sincerity. "If you choose not to see it, I assure you one day you'll regret it deeply." Chapter 395, A Dream, 1. Hearing Noor go so far as to give him such an ominous warning made Eugene more curious than annoyed. So without any further thought, Eugene nodded in agreement. Sir Eugene, isn't this way too dangerous? Be benefactor, it is true that I am an amazing dragon, but I do not have the confidence if it comes to facing the queen of the night demons. From inside Eugene's cloak, Mare and Rhaenyra piped up with worry in their voices. Initially, the two of them had been planning to have fun at the party like normal children, regardless of their actual ages, and enjoy the various delicacies arranged in the banquet hall, but now that was no longer possible. It's fine, Eugene reassured them. The two of them had valid concerns. From now on, Noor would be using her demon eye of fantasy on Eugene, and Eugene wouldn't be able to resist it if he wanted to see the dream she had offered to show him. In other words, that meant Eugene was virtually placing his life in Noir's hands. While Eugene was trapped within the dream, it would be of utmost simplicity for Noir to molest Eugene however she liked. They didn't know how much resistance Eugene might be able to put on once caught in the dream, but if resistance was impossible, then, if they weren't careful, Eugene might become lost in the dream forever, unable to return to reality. The dream might even be able to drive his mind to collapse. However, Eugene wasn't all too worried about such a possibility. Although he was unhappy to admit such a feeling even to himself, Eugene trusted Noir. This crazy slut wouldn't want to conquer Eugene using this method. Although the current party might be luxuriously decorated, the aim of this banquet was to celebrate Eugene's achievement. It wasn't a banquet dedicated to Noir and Eugene alone. So in a place like this, for Noir to use her silver tongue to cunningly tempt him into falling into one of her dreams, all so that she could easily get her hands on him. There's no way she would do that, Eugene was sure of it. Noir Giabella would never do something like that. Noir Giabella would absolutely not use such a method on him. Eugene did not have a single doubt about this fact. Why on earth would you believe that? Mare asked, unable to understand the strange faith Eugene had in Noir. Even though she was someone that Eugene hated and truly wished to kill, how on earth could he trust her like that? Even as he listened to Mare grumbling inside his head, Eugene just shrugged his shoulders and sat in one of the chairs on the terrace. Noir felt a surge of heat rising inside her as she saw Eugene take a seat without even asking her any more questions. Pressing down firmly on her pounding chest, Noir sat down across from Eugene. She had also sensed Eugene's trust in her. Feeling a heady mix of sweetness and joy, Noir unconsciously let out a bright smile. Throughout the world, this sort of trust was something that only these two, Noir and Eugene, might be able to feel, and it also served as proof that they each saw each other as a unique and special existence. While indulging in such a fresh experience for the very first time in her life, Noir stared directly into Eugene's eyes. Right now, Noir was looking only at Eugene, and Eugene was also looking back at Noir. She unconsciously let out a shallow sigh. Such an exchange of gazes would best be shared while lying together on the same bed instead of sitting in chairs like this. Should we take this to a bed? Noir proposed. Stop with the fucking bullshit and just get on with it already, Eugene replied in a sharp tone. This was much the sort of reaction she had expected, and since she hadn't gotten her hopes up in the first place, she wasn't hurt by what Eugene said. However, Noir still felt a bit of disappointment and regret, so she began to noticeably pout. Suddenly, Noir smiled seductively. If you give me a chance, I'm confident I can make you go, oh shit. 1. Her response was beyond imagination. Eugene's jaw dropped down. Mare, who had been listening from inside his cloak, also had an identical jaw-dropping reaction. Only Rhaenyra was left tilting her head in confusion, unable to understand Noir's reply. Eugene yelped, "You crazy bitch, what the hell do you think you're saying?" "I'm just being honest about my desires," Noir insisted, only to quickly change her attitude when Eugene was about to leave in disgust and beg him to stay. All right, I'm sorry Hamel, it's my mistake. So please don't go anywhere and just sit down." In the end, Eugene resumed sitting in front of Noir, his lips clamped shut and a fiery light in his eyes. "I'll start now," Noir informed him. Noir didn't continue her teasing and instead stared straight into his eyes with a rarely seen serious expression on her face. Various colors appeared in her purple eyes and began to swirl. Noir didn't make Eugene close his eyes and fall asleep. There was no need for her to do so. The moment the demon eye of fantasy activated, Eugene couldn't resist its ability. At the very moment of activation, Eugene's consciousness was pulled out of reality and guided into the dream that Noir had created. "Welcome to my memory." The sound of Noir's voice lingered in Eugene's ears as reality collapsed around him. Bender. ******. In the 300 years since the end of the war, Helmuth had developed at an unbelievably fast pace. For Noir, who had lived far longer than 300 years, Helmuth's development left it strange and unfamiliar. This shining example of civilization was achieved solely by the Demon King of Incarceration. If the Demon King of Incarceration had only had the will to do so, Helmuth would have already reached its current level of civilization hundreds of years ago. Prior to the war, the Demon King of Incarceration had never sought to develop his territory despite having such ability. No, instead he pretty much ignored it, Noir thought to herself. As far as Noir could recall, the Demon King of Incarceration hadn't been initially all that active in political matters. The Demon King of Incarceration had ruled over his vassals with his overwhelming strength, just like the other Demon Kings, and had likewise reigned over his territory with an equally mindless brute force. All other minor affairs of rulership were handled by his shield, staff and blade, instead of the Demon King of Incarceration himself. However, following the war, the Demon King of Incarceration had changed. The very first thing he did was to declare Babel and the rest of his fief, the whole of Pandemonium, as the capital city of Helmuth. He then proceeded to encourage the development of Helmuth's civilization through so many different methods that it was hard to imagine how he could have come up with all of them. The current Helmuth possessed such a high level of civilization that no other country on the continent could compare to it. While Aroth, which was known as the Kingdom of Magic, was still developing a means of transportation by combining magic with mechanical engineering, Helmuth had already commercialized its dark-powered vehicles by burying dark power cables throughout the entire territory and building the black towers that transmitted the dark power of the Demon King of Incarceration throughout the country. On top of that, the Airfish, which granted the Demon King total surveillance of Pandemonium, was a cutting-edge technology that couldn't be imitated by any other country. All of this could only function thanks to the existence of the Demon King of Incarceration. If the Demon King of Incarceration were to immediately stop the supply of dark power from Babel, all of Helmuth would literally come to a halt. In that sense, the Demon King of Incarceration was the sole and absolute ruler of Helmuth. However, even in Helmuth, there were places out of the Demon King of Incarceration's reach. These were the places where Helmuth's blazing light of civilization refused to shine. At the very northern end of Helmuth's territory, across a silent gray sea, there was a single island that existed all on its own. The name of this island was Revesta. The fief of destruction, Noir thought as she stared out over the gray sea. Unlike other seas, this sea wasn't a shade of blue. Ordinary creatures like fish weren't able to survive within this sea either. It was a sea of death where something like vitality simply didn't exist. Although the vast empire of Helmuth was ruled by the Demon King of Incarceration, this gray sea and its sole island of Revesta were territories governed by the Demon King of Destruction. Though, could it really be described as governing? Noir almost let out a laugh. The island was barbaric and primitive. While the demon folk of Helmuth were able to enjoy the overwhelmingly superior conveniences provided by the Demon King of Incarceration, the demon folk of Revesta had remained frozen in time from 300 years ago until now. "It's a dump," Noir muttered to herself as she gazed across the gray sea. Revesta was virtually Helmuth's trash can. Where did all the countless demonic beasts that Helmuth had mobilized in its war against the continent go when the war ended 300 years ago? Those demonic beasts who had no free will and could only carry out simple commands were worse than animals. Following the Oath of Peace, the Demon King of Incarceration had used those countless demonic beasts as a source of manual labor. But after they had served their uses, the demonic beasts that were no longer needed were all thrown out onto Revesta. Even now, the hordes of demonic beasts from back then were still sleeping underground or beneath the sea surrounding Revesta. "It's not a place I've ever really wanted to visit," Noir complained. There were no passenger ships that went as far as Revesta. The island was even more closed off than the Dragon Demon Fortress. Every single one of the demon folk who had lived on Revesta since 300 years ago were vassals of destruction, and they actively blocked all other demon folk from even getting close to Revesta. Noir was also well aware of this fact, but she didn't really care about it. So what if there weren't any ships heading there or even any warp gates? Letting out a snort, Noir spread her wings wide open. As she crossed the sea, A demon folk appeared before her and greeted her, Duke Giabella. He was neatly dressed with alabaster skin, a man so overflowing with bewitching seductiveness that it was easy to think that he might be an incubus. Recognizing him, Noor let out another snort and returned his greeting. It's been about 300 years now, hasn't it? Although night demons and vampires were fundamentally different at their core, there wasn't much of a difference when it came to their regular behavior. A night demon could absorb their victim's life force through a dream or sexual intercourse, while a vampire would drink their prey's blood to absorb their life force. If it was someone weaker than they would both take down their prey using force. But when hunting someone stronger, they would need to resort to various other means, including seducing their opponents. Just because they were similar didn't mean there was any camaraderie between them. When prey overlapped, the existence of a competing species of predator would only become a hindrance. As such, Noor used to hate vampires a long time ago. However, at some point she had stopped disliking them so much. Even 300 years ago, there had already existed a gap between her and the declining vampire race. And now, even after examining the entire history of the vampire race, there was no one who would be able to surpass the current Noir. Therefore, Noir was able to greet the man with a bright smile. It's been a long time. The man bowed his head towards her with a bitter smile. His name was Alfiro Lazet. During the era of war, he had been the leader of a large clan of vampires. Sane, who had led a clan of similar size to Alfiro's, had been adopted as the son of the Demon King of Fury and further expanded his clan's numbers. But that huge clan had perished along with the Demon King of Fury's death. Alfiro, who up until that point had yet to submit himself to a Demon King, subordinated himself to the Demon King of Destruction to secure his clan's survival during the war. However, once the war had ended in vain, Alfiro and his vampire clan, along with the other demon folk who had submitted themselves to the Demon King of Destruction, had followed the Demon King that they had sworn their loyalty to into seclusion on this remote Revesta island. Since such a long time has passed, I thought that you might have died, Noor confessed rudely. Alfiro laughed. For people like us, 300 years isn't long enough to exhaust our lifespan. As far as I was aware, Revesta shouldn't have any humans, Noor pointed out as she stared at Alfiro with bright eyes. Can a vampire really live for 300 years without drinking a single drop of blood? If it's a vampire of about your level, then it might be possible, but it should be impossible for the vampires serving under you, no? Their numbers have decreased quite considerably, Alfiro admitted. Could it be that you've even engaged in cannibalism? Noor asked with a mischievous smile. She felt that it was both amusing and disgusting to imagine a vampire sinking its fangs into another vampire's neck and drinking their blood. Not at all, Alfiro disagreed with a shake of his head. After coming to Revesta, the vampires of our clan have stopped drinking blood. Our Lord has bestowed upon us something even denser and richer, and therefore much sweeter, than the life-force-laden blood of a human. Within the curve of his brightly smiling eyes, an ominous and disturbing dark power began to writhe. Noor just giggled and crossed her arms. It seems that your Demon King does have some affection for his vassals? Alfiro clarified. It is not affection. He is merely bestowing his grace upon us because we requested it. Then why are your numbers decreasing? Noor narrowed her eyes. Could it be that they escaped because they couldn't bear the stifling life of seclusion? Where would you ever find a clan that would let any of their members go just because they wanted to leave? Those clan members who wanted to leave all died and became sacrifices to our Lord. In fact, most of our losses aren't from those sacrifices but from those who died because they weren't able to bear the strain, Alfiro replied with a wry smile. Unable to bear the strain. Noor didn't feel the need to ask any more questions regarding his claim. It was clear that Alfiro was referring to the vampires who lacked the qualifications needed to absorb the dark power of the Demon King of Destruction. But I'm sure that you didn't come here just to ask about me and my clan. Alfiro changed the subject, a calm smile still on his face. However, the unpleasant and disturbing flow of dark power leaking out of him gradually grew stronger. Duke Giabella, as you should already be aware, Revesta is a special location even for Helmuth. It wouldn't be inaccurate to call it an independent territory. Revesta is not governed by Helmuth and Helmuth's laws do not apply here, Alfiro reminded her. I'm also well aware of that, Noir responded with a grin. Without losing the smile in his eyes, Alfiro continued speaking. The reason that I have come here is not to welcome Duke Giabella to our island. My purpose for meeting you like this is to request that you make your return. Even if it is you, Duke Giabella. Boom. Alfiro wasn't able to finish his sentence. His smiling eyes snapped wide open as they glanced towards his side. Something like a black whirlwind had shot out and stopped right next to Alfiro's ear. The law of Helmuth that you're talking about is the law of the Empire, right? Moore asked him cheerfully. Alfiro kept silent. Moore continued to inform him, I happen to be a demon folk who can live quite happily without any laws. Instead, I actually happen to do much better without any laws at all. Do you know what that means? It means I've never once relied on the law to protect me. This was true. Moore had never once benefited in any way from Helmuth's laws. Those damned laws were actually far too harsh and bothersome for Noir. So much so that if she thought of all the fines she had been forced to pay up until now, she sometimes wished they could go back to 300 years ago when all those fines didn't exist. So if Helmuth's laws do not apply in Revesta, then as far as I can recall, as demon folk, if there are no laws, everything is resolved through force, correct? In that case, Alfiro, are you actually planning to make me return by force? Noir's smiling eyes slowly began to part. How exactly do you plan to do that? Instead of replying, Alfiro just stared at Noir. After a few moments of silence, Alfiro let out a deep sigh and moved his body to the side slightly. Isn't that why I said it that way? Alfiro complained. I came out here to request that you make your return. If that's all you wanted to do, then why attempt to pressure me by slowly increasing your flow of dark power? And all those words that you attached to the start of your request were also quite provocative. Noir mimicked Alfiro. Even if it is you, Duke Giabella, what exactly were you planning to say next? The demon folk of Revesta won't welcome your visit either, Duke Giabella, Alfiro warned her. Perhaps all of them might even decide to attack you. Noir interrupted him once more. Ah, are you really worried about me? However, your worry is pointless. So you truly have no intention of turning back? Alfiro asked, resigned. Not one bit, Noir confirmed. Just what on earth is it that brings you to Revesta? Alfiro asked with an expression of complete incomprehension. Noir tilted her head to the side and waved her fingers at Revesta. That island, I can tell how bleak it must be just by looking at it, so don't you think it needs a little entertainment? Alfiro wasn't sure how to respond. I'm talking about something fun, something exciting. How about I build you a few entertainment facilities for free? Noir proposed. Alfiro immediately rejected her. There's no need for that. That isn't something you can decide, Alfiro. Noir corrected him, her eyes lit up with a sparkling light. I am Noir Giabella. There aren't many beings in this world who can make me change my mind. So what right do you, who isn't even a demon king, have to oppose my will? Alfiro made one final attempt to ward her off. Aren't you afraid of the demon king of destruction, Duke Giabella? If the demon king of destruction feels that my current behavior is rude, I will surely allow myself to be held accountable. That is if he really does want to scold me, Noir said with a giggle as she flew past Alfiro. Alfiro let out another sigh and turned his head. What is the real reason that you wish to enter Revesta? Please don't repeat the same joke you told me just now. My real reason, Noir paused. It's nothing too amazing. I just wanted to come here and take a look around, so that's why I'm here. Isn't that all the reason I need? She was actually here for the things that she hadn't been able to hear from the demon king of incarceration. The things that he had refused to talk about even when she had asked him, like why the Moonlight Sword had gone out of control. And the disturbing and ominous dark power of destruction that it had unleashed. The demon king of incarceration hadn't asked Noir to give up her freedom to pursue this matter. Noir also hadn't offered that freedom to the demon king of incarceration. That was why Noir was currently free to do this. She hadn't been able to get the answers she wanted from her interview with the demon king of incarceration. Since she still had a few vague doubts about this matter, Noir felt she should take the chance to make her own move to seek the answers she wanted. Because I have the freedom to do so, Noir muttered to herself with a smile.